Hello everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Internship Training Week organized by Communiqué IIT Kharagpur. Yesterday, we explored opportunities in data and finance. Today, we shift our focus to one of the most sought after domains during internship season, which is consulting. So, joining today are three outstanding panelists. But before we dive into heavy preparation strategies, let's get to know them.
So our first panelist is Mr. Hitarth Vora, currently an associate in consulting initiative at Bain and Company. Hitarth, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, I am Hitarth, recently going to be entering the fourth year. I am from the Department of Mechanical Engineering. I'm from Azad, and yeah, as he said, I am currently interning at Bain. I am in Gurgaon. I'm based out of Gurgaon. And what else? What else? Yeah, pretty much it. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
continue.
Thank you, Itharth. Next, we have Abhideep Shikhar Pandey, who is currently an summer associate at LEK Consulting. Abhideep, over to you for a brief introduction.
Yeah, thank you for the Shubhajit. So, hello everybody. Myself, Abhideep Shekhar Pandey. I am from Lucknow. I am in my fourth year of economics at KGP. I'm a boarder of Azad Hall of Residence, and as is already mentioned, I'm interning at LEK Consulting in their global education practice in the Mumbai office.
Oh, thanks, Abhideep. And finally, we have Mr. Shamit Shah, who is also a summer associate at LEK Consulting. Shamit, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, so hey everyone, my name is Shamit and I'm currently interning as mentioned as a summer associate at IIT Consultant and I am based out of the Mumbai office as well. And yeah, I'm a fourth year economics undergraduate.
Okay, thank you, Shamit. So let's just dive right in. So, like the first question is, when did you decide to target consulting as a profile? Because being from an IIT, the pre-assumed inclination of a person is taken to be tech. So, what factors did you consider before narrowing it down to this profile? Shamit, would you like to answer first?
Yeah, I'll start because I think I have a slightly different viewpoint on this. So actually, I was set on taking economics as my undergrad right from high school, right? Which is why I took it as my optional in 11th and 12th as well. So I started exploring opportunities in economics right then and there. So then I got some exposure to, finance careers, consulting careers, and like core economics careers and stuff. So when I entered KGP in my first year, like I was somewhat clear that I want to pursue a non-tech path, presumably in finance, consulting, and such. And then my experiences at college, led me to narrow it down to like what I actually wanted to do, and that was consulting at the core.
Oh, great. So, Hitat, uh, would you like to answer?
Yeah, so for me, it's more like I am someone who reads a lot. I am someone who constantly tracks industries. I'm someone who invests in a few public companies then and there. So for me, seeing problems that companies face on a daily basis, how they solve them, for me, that's something that was quite interesting. And honestly, initially in my first and second year, I wasn't really inclined to go into consulting. It's just something that along the way I realized maybe I might have proficiency for, and maybe my profile might be good enough to get the shortlists in this particular industry. So then I was like, I weighed two and two together, and I thought maybe it's a risk worth taking to create a profile where you could possibly get a shortlist in.
Oh, great. So, Abhideep, what did you consider before locking in on consulting?
Yeah, so I believe my answer is going to be akin with what Shamit mentioned. Even in my case, my core department is economics. So consulting, finance, and other such non-tech profiles are a forte by the people here in this department. Adding to it, I was introduced to the non-tech societies in my first and second year at college. So I actively pursued projects there or did internships, etc., which narrowed down my interest to consulting and finance, basically. And besides that, whatever I've been doing in the college for the last 2 years, be it the positions of responsibility or the startups or internship, anything, has been more on interacting with people and doing strategy, growth, etc. kind of things, which converges to the crux of consulting. And I think that is the answer I would give you.
Yeah.
Great.
So, building on early experiences, what's your stance on pre-CDSE internships? Are they important or not? And which role should a student target as an intern? Siddharth, would you like to go first?
Guys, can I, yeah,
Okay.
can I start there?
Uh,
So,
so
yeah, okay, you
continue,
can go on
continue,
with that.
continue. It's fine. I'll go after you.
Yeah, so pre-CDC internships, right? I think they are the most important part of, getting an entire consulting shortlist in the first place. And why that is so is because it, proves to the recruiters that you can handle the pressure of corporate life. Not just that, but they know that you've actually created an impact in the corporate space before you are entering consulting, which is very, very important because at the end of the day, your job as a consultant is to provide a net positive delta for all your clients, right? So coming to how they influence the process in itself, well, pre-CDC internships are important, but then there are certain kinds of internships that are probably possibly more important, right? Like I would say corporate internships, especially in big brands, are really the ones that move the needle. So by big brands, what do I mean? I mean Indian legacy brands like say Reliance, Mahindra, say FMCG brands like ITC, HUL. While it's rare to get experiences of this stage in the second year, some people like manage to do so. So it essentially adds a lot to your profile.
Okay.
Okay. Just a slight caveat to what he said. I've seen multiple people without internships as well getting shortlisted, and it's more about the story that your CV is telling, right? Are you someone who has, f- you know, for the last 4 years done inter-IIT in a particular field? Are you someone who has an interest in, let's say, your core, which is manufacturing for me? And have I done an intern in a manufacturing company itself? A well-recognized one, as he said, right? A legacy company, probably. Have I done like two or three startup interns in the education sector as well? I know a particular person who has two or three edtech interns in the startup field. And the thing is, a particular consulting company, the reason they like such diverse profiles is, as they said, they work in several diverse industries, right? So they want people for different fits throughout the entire ecosystem. So yes, they are important, but also, do you have something to counteract it? Do you have something more interesting that you have done that maybe might balance the fact that you do not have many internships? So it's all a play about what you're willing to leverage in your strengths.
Okay. That's very insightful. Abhijit, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I would add on to what Hitarth proposed, and I agree with it. The key objective of having internship or any such thing on your CV is to prove to the recruiters that you possess the required skill set. You have the ability to adapt and learn quickly. So you could do through internships, that really helps. But if at all the cases you do not have such brand internships, there's not much concern about it. You can do it through impactful projects or startups or any a feather on your cap which speaks well about you and it convinces the people that you can work in a dynamically changing environment that should do for you. And to answer what roles students should target, they could be typical founders office role or business analyst, etc., whichever can show high impact, high value addition that you can provide.
Okay. But
Eh,
I have a question. I have a question after that. Like, If a student has done some internship before CDC in some other domain, like say tech, it is completely different from consult. So should he mention it on his CV or not?
I mean, yeah, why not? As everyone was saying, right, your CV has to have a story. Is your story someone who has done a lot of tech? I mean, my one of my co-interns manager is Kharagpur computer science only. He's a manager at Bain. And his entire CV, even before joining Bain. Again, he didn't join Bain after placement. He joined Bain after like 4 5 years of working. But he'd worked in quant at Tower Research before that. And then he shifted to joining Bain, right? So, as I said, there are so many IT service and data analytics companies that hire consulting companies to work for them, right? So they want experts in those fields as well. The better you know your stuff, the better, you know, you have a way to differentiate yourself. The whole point is differentiating yourself.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so to add to what Hitak said, I think it's pretty correct. So when you add an intern to your CV, right, you actually have to think about what it brings to the table as well. So you are going for a consulting role and you're broadly aware of it, right? But if all of your experiences are in the tech field, which is not a wrong thing, which is actually probably great for your diversity as well, you have to know how to position it correctly, right? Like, suppose if you have done a data analytics or a machine learning intern, and you fill up your consulting CV with all the technicalities, like what algorithms you use. For example, you use XGBoost and whatnot, so that would not help, right? Because companies aren't looking for what models you use. They're ultimately looking for what impact did you create. So, for example, in your tech internship only, you pushed a model that became universally adopted by the company, or you created an entirely new code base that helped streamline a company's work stream a lot. So those are the things that would essentially, push your application towards the top rather than just mentioning the intern and being too technical about it. So how we position it also matters.
Got it. Got it.
Okay,
But
so
let's say, yeah, would you like to say something? So I had one more question that suppose that a student uh, was not able to get a pre-CDC internship. So what kind of projects and what level of projects should he make or mention in his CV?
So I think again, it's not you cannot define a project's level per se, right? In that manner, like whatever level it may be, it is about how you can present it on your CV. So even though it's something very small, like it's something you've done for a very short term, you have to position it in a way that is high impact. Like it should be visible that you were in it for getting some learning out of it, and it's not on your CV just for the sake of it. So again, in terms of the projects that you can do, uh, again, it could be a diverse range of projects. It could be department related. It could be tech related. It could be any projects that if you are in a society, there are a lot of societies taking up pro bono projects and the like. It could be those. It could be self projects also. But all these again should have a number or like a story behind it.
Understood. Abhijit, would you like to add something on this?
Yeah, so there's been quite a frequent mention of impact, and I would reiterate the point. The sole idea of a consult CV is to display and demonstrate what impact you have created. It is always impact driven. So whenever you frame the pointers, also you start with the impact you have provided, which could be increase the profit of this one by XYZ percentage or etc. And that could come from any project, be it a project in your department or in a society, a cell, something you have done through a case competition, anything qualifies for it. The concern is how much impact you can show through that project. And if the impact is quite high enough, that can outdo the impact of a corporate internship also. So it's basically about how you frame and project it.
Right, right. That's very helpful.
okay, so like that was very insightful. So now let's
Hitash,
talk
would you
about
like to
the
add something?
I mean, I agree with both of them very honestly for this. There's nothing else I can add. It's like the same point is true for everything, right? Interns, projects, everything. That it's about that story that you're trying to tell. It's very easy to call bullshit on your resume, right? If I am a recruiter and I look at some of the resumes, uh, it's very easy to call bullshit कि किसी ने क्या actually किया है कि नहीं किया है. And if that is the case, then there's a high chance you won't get the shortlist, right? So try to think about, is your story making sense? If you have just 10 things that make zero sense in your resume, then they know that you've not done anything. Why would they add you just because you've put fluff in your resume for the shortlist, right?
Right. Okay.
Okay, so like that was very insightful. So now let's talk about the selection process and getting those shortlists. So a common concern is CGPA. So how important is it in shortlisting for consulting roles?
So
Um,
I think I can start.
yeah.
How a consult firm shortlists is based on spikes. So a spike in simple term is an outstanding achievement from any of the sections of your CV, from the achievements, extracurricular, etc. CGPA comes at the very top of your CV. So that can qualify as the first spike. And that is why I think most people pronounce it as the most important aspect. It is important, but it is not the determinant factor here. So if you think your CGPA is not that high, you can still make up for it with some other spike on the other section. It could come from internship or extracurricular activity or position of responsibility for that matter. So I think the buzz about CGPA is quite overhyped. It has to be a decent CGPA, but it is not all. There are always ways you can cover up. And I think there is a plethora of example of people who have done it besides a not so good CGPA.
Okay.
I agree with him. It is not a game of just CGPA. A lot of people with like seven, I've heard 7.3 tak people getting shortlisted and getting selected also. So even possibly lower in the years before us. So you never know. Small exception to that, Bain does have a high weightage given to CGPA. If you look at the differences between shortlists from Bain and the other consulting companies, most people that got a shortlist at Bain had a CGPA, I would say slightly on the higher side as compared to anybody else. Uh, I would say maybe, for example, if you have 100 CVs, they'll take the top 10%, they'll take the top 10 based on CGPA. They'll look at your profile. If they do not think your profile is good enough even with that CGPA, then they'll take the 11th, then the 12th. It's kind of similar to that. I wouldn't say exactly like that, a little similar to that. Specifically for Bain, this is not true for other consulting companies. Everyone has different weights and biases that they attach to each spike, as he said. For Bain, that weight is
Yeah,
a little
so
higher on CG.
true. I think what Abhijit and Hitat made are excellent points. But my experience, I think my perspective on this is slightly different. Right? Like as Abhijit mentioned, CGPA is the first thing that comes up on your CV, right? And it's obviously just a number. So the higher it is, the easier it is for recruiters to like judge you. So purely going from an optics standpoint, suppose someone has a very high CGPA, say a 9 plus CGPA, and then he has decentish. So I mean, since the recruiter reads that first, he probably already has a reasonable impression that this guy is hardworking in his studies and he's able to manage academic load very well. So then when he goes on to read your internships and your extracurriculars and your PORs, he possibly, tries to connect it all back to your CGPA depending on your quality of interns, extracurriculars. And if he finds that they are even decent enough, then, I feel that they have a chance of a shortlist. But as Siddharth and Abhijit said, obviously it's not impossible to get in, with CGPA slightly on the possibly lower side. You need to have something to, compensate for it. So if not CGPA, what is something groundbreaking that you have done otherwise in your 2 years at college? For example, some people who got shortlisted, they were working on a startup. Some people have, interned at a lot of places and have a lot of diverse experiences. So I would say that obviously it's not paramount, but it is something that matters as well. And especially in a field like consulting, where there's a huge volume of applications, and each one has to be scanned manually for experiences because the story matters. So that's something they would judge on. On a side note, I feel from what I heard from my seniors at LK, 8+ was the sweet spot for getting shortlisted. So below 8 is also still possible, but like again, the impact and story factor comes into it.
Okay, so like I had a follow-up. So like Hitarth, like is there any safe range for Bain? So like people should keep in mind for CG?
Again, it's the thing is the safe range depends on the batch, right? If your batch has a higher, so for our batch, what happened is our plus one batch had a lower CGPA than average CGPA than ours. And if you would notice that every senior across the years always tells you the same thing that uh, consulting has a lot of 5-year bias, and that 5-year bias was completely overturned in our batch. Almost everyone that got shortest, I would say at least 60 to 70% were just 4-year students, right? So, and that was simply because our average CGPA was a little higher than theirs. So it does play, and also the fact that our profiles in general were also slightly better. Okay. So the biases that exist in place, yes, but can you overturn them through your CV, through your CG? That being said, I would say the safe mark during my selection process was most people getting having a CG above 8.5 and a decentish profile. I think got the shortlist 8.75K upper and a slightly, you know, I would say slightly worse profile with 8.75 plus also made it work. But again, it depends entirely upon the branch. So isme branch also has a lot to play, right? If you have a difficult branch, then as we said, top 10%. Now that top 10% could be a weightage of all the CVs taken or could be department wise as well. So that is something that I can't confirm to you. But yeah, if you want the sweet spot for our batch, 8.5 to 9 was a good range. 9 plus was a great range.
Got it. And
True,
is
true.
there any range for uh,
Yeah, to
LEK?
add to this department wala point. So, as Siddharth said, average CGs across every department differ, right? So, in our time, there was also the play of department ranks. So, some difficult departments, say mechanical and some other departments, from what I heard, at least their department ranks were in the range of 8.75-ish to 9. But then some departments on the easier side, like I'll take my department for example, where the average CGP is a bit higher. So like many people who applied were in the 9+ bucket, right? So again, as he said, if they decide to check your profiles department wise, then that CG factor comes into play really hard because like in a particular department, many people have 9+, in another department, lesser people have 9+, and so on. As for your second question, I don't think there was any particular, range that NEK defined themselves. But like a very, very safe spot, I would agree with Hitat, it would be 8.5 plus. 8 was very doable with, a lots of good experiences on your CV. Below 8 is still very, very possible, but like your CV has to be exceptional. Like not as in not exceptional in terms of what all you have on there, but how you present it.
Understood. And I had a follow-up that as far as I am aware, mentioning department ranks in the CV is not allowed. So if there's a certain department in which the department rank holders have a less CG, then how they manage to mention their CV, they mention their CGPA in the CV because it might look less.
I mean, they get the
Yeah, so I'm not
CVs,
sure about
right?
that.
They get their
Yeah.
CVs, if I'm not wrong, all together. So now they'll weigh you based on the CVs that they have, right? If they have 100 mechanical CVs, they're going to see that you're at the top then. It's as simple as that.
Okay, understood.
And I don't know if I think this is a new rule that is in place. It wasn't there on our time, but I think it would help you guys somewhat, right? Because it eliminates the department bias for tougher departments.
Okay. Abhijit, would you like to add something?
Yeah, the same thing. So I think this is a new change. So back in our time, we could mention our department and department ranks both. But now that they've voided it out, uh, as Siddharth mentioned, yeah, new trends would come in. So possibly yes, since the HR team has all the CVs in front, they could weigh it and rank it according to their discretion. So it should be of help because since you're not being given an extra weightage because of your department, most departments come at an equal level here.
Okay. Uh, so let's formally talk about building a strong CV. How important are PORs, extracurriculars, or case competitions in making your CV stand out? Siddharth, given your leadership role as governor at B Club, how much weight do you think these carry?
Okay, so again, it has a variety of factors, right? Is your CGPA something that is exceptional? If that is the case, let's go on to the next question. What's your story? Are you a manufacturing student who's done tech? Are you a manufacturing student who has a keen interest in his own domain? I had a lot of interns, and I know that they were not manufacturing interns, but all of the industries that I covered in them were either tech or manufacturing. So I told the story of manufacturing in my entire resume, right? Uh, so if you have everything else in place, if you have a good story, I don't think, as we said, right, I don't think one single thing can be a game changer. But that being said, uh, a good POR from a recognized society goes a long way. I know that because even when I'm here, people recognize the society, some of the societies from the campuses. They knew about B Club in here also, some of the seniors at the firm, right? So that is something that has existed and that is something that is in place. But that being said, people without those uh, PURs, without the PURs of like an established cell or a club or something, I don't think you need to worry, right? Just have a good CV that counterbalances that. But yes, that being said, if you do have a POR from a recognized society, then yes, it will and possibly could add good weightage to your resume. I think BCG here has a higher weightage. I think my shortlist at BCG, like it helped that I was B Club Gov. It really did because in your BCG portal for your internship, you have only two or three fields which you have to fill initially, and then they screen your profile post that. And in that portal, one of the important I think screening methodologies was your POR, if I am not wrong. So one or two things here and there differ across companies, right? So BCG does like that POR. uh, Bain sometimes have a different higher criteria for CG. LEK McKinsey have their own criterias, right? So yeah, that is pretty much all.
Okay. Shamit, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so to add to this, really, it's just the spike system in play, right? Any consulting shortlist depends on how many spikes you have in your CV. So as Abhijit was mentioning earlier, one of them is your CVP, which is visible at the top. One can be big brand internships, impactful internships. Next, again, it's PORs and extracurriculars, right? So again, if you don't have a POR, then you need to justify why you don't have a POR, right? Like, what were you doing in college if you did not have a POR in that 1 year? So taking my example, for example, I did not have a POR when I was shortlisted. I was shortlisted by both Bain and LEK. So my story was that when I was not having that POR, I was actively engaged in economics research, right? Like I wrote two, three working papers. I got approved. I got them approved by some professors in my department. Then I submitted them to some journals for review. And like those papers were all in the fields that I really like finance and public policy. So in that sense, I was able to, create a story that I became really interested in, what my department had to offer in terms of academic rigor. So I shifted towards, writing papers as opposed to holding a PR. So again, it depends on how you present it. if you don't have a POR, it is acceptable in my opinion. But again, if you do have one, it helps you a lot because you do not have to do anything else to like justify what you were doing in your third year or something. So it helps in that way. It helps probably in a shortlist if you are lagging behind in possibly one of the fields on the CV. It helps a lot. And yeah, as Siddharth did mention, some societies carry some importance in firms as well. Like we would have seniors at EGK as well who are from B Club and 180DC. So they know that you were part of this and you can, possibly work well. So that changes the equation a bit at work as well. But having it is not an absolute necessity, I would say.
Okay. Abhijit, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so I'll just summarize the same thing. There's not much to add to it. A good PR really helps because basically consulting is about client facing, interaction, leadership, and taking on such roles. So if you have done such thing at a recognized place in your college, that speaks volumes of your ability to do so in the future as well. So yes, it simply eases your route. You have an easier route during the shortlisting. But again, coming back, if you do not have a strong PR, there's not much concern about it. Focus on things that you do have. That could be a good internship or a research work or an achievement, extracurricular, case competition, anything. And just put it on your CV in a very glorified way so that it tells why why this thing of yours can outdo something which a PR is doing. And that should do for you.
That's very helpful, Abhijit.
Okay, so that was very insightful. So, moving on to the core of the interviews, case preparation is central to cracking consulting roles. So, how did you start preparing for case interviews and which resources or books did you find the most helpful? So, Avideep, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
So
guys, I think we missed something in the CV building part. Like, uh,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
extracurriculars are also important, right? Like Hitat was mentioning, if you've been to Inter IIT a significant number of times, either tech or cult or sports as well. The last time McKinsey came, they took a lot of Inter IIT sports people in the shortlist. So in terms of extracurriculars, that helps as well, if not as well. So yeah, that is it. We can move on probably.
Okay, great.
so coming to your
Yeah.
question, Shashank, so there are standard case books that people follow, but I would want to customize the answer given my case. I found some YouTube videos which are of more help if you're starting afresh. So two of my favorites were one from Victor Cheng and the other was Aditya Agarwal, this I am Ahmedabad guy. So these two video actually help you what a consulting interview is trying to assess, what your HR or the recruiter is looking for through your answers and through your estimation. So I would recommend people to go through these two video series. And after these, there are standard case books given by IIM Ahmedabad, SRCC. They help you understand how to address a case interview. I will also suggest an IIT Bombay casebook because that is based on a more mathematical approach, which could sometimes be asked in a case interview. Like in my case, they did ask a mathematical question. And since I had a few background from IIT Bombay casebook, I found it a little easier to navigate through it. And just a tip, pro tip here, whenever people do case books or practice resources, do it with a case group. Find people around you who are equally interested uh, in solving cases or who are aspiring for a consulting shortlist, do it rigorously with them. Keep taking down their feedbacks and whatever shortcomings and flaws they're pointing. Because in the end, it's going to be a verbal communication between you and the interviewer. Regardless of how much you've practiced, if you've not done it vocally, if not spoken to people and interacted with clarity and confidence, you would not be able to do it that well. So practice the resources with a case group.
Okay. So that was very helpful.
I would say case prep is a little intuitive, right? So as he said, the resources that you're using are very good, and the groups that you make to do case prep with also very important. make good groups of people who are serious. And yeah, it's an intuitive process, so read up a lot, yeah. One tip that helped me was I used to constantly read about multiple industries. So I had a little bit of an idea about what's going on, how to break the bucket towards the problem that it could possibly have. That being said, the problems are sometimes really weird, but still, it does help having a little bit of industry context as well.
Okay, that was very helpful. So, Shamit, would you like something
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
So
to add?
yeah, to add
Yeah.
to this, name sources again, as Abhijit mentioned, case interview secrets by Victor Chen, case in point by Mark Cosentine. That was one I read. The IIT Bombay Casebook, which is case interviews crack. All these three are excellent sources. Like in my case, I did not have to go beyond these three for learning the basics of cases. When it comes to actually practicing cases, I felt that the IIM casebooks are the best, and I feel they are a notch above undergrad casebooks, and I'll tell you why. It's because the cases in there are on the tougher side, and like as Siddharth mentioned, many cases can be weird, unconventional cases as well. So IIM casebooks like prepare you for all those types of cases, even though they are not predominantly asked on an undergrad level. So sometimes I felt that the undergrad casebooks tend to down things a lot. So I went with IIM Facebook, but that is there. Adding to this, the IIT, the IIM Ahmedabad Facebook also has a separate booklet called the Industry Primer booklet, which again, as Siddharth mentioned, helps you in grasping the basics of every industry, like current trends, important terms, key performance indicators, and stuff like that. Again, one more thing, practicing with a group, very important. You have to find a bunch of people who are committed and who sit with you daily. I would advise you to you know keep your group more or less constant throughout, because like throughout, as in at least for a span of 1 2 weeks, because like you will be able to identify each other's weaknesses and strengths really well. But also try to find new people, because after a while, it gets very predictable and you don't know what others will throw at you in terms of questioning. So try broadening your horizons towards the end, like when your interviews are close by. If you cannot practice with a partner, there's always ways that you can do it alone as well. I'm assuming now, if you guys cannot, meet online, for those who are interested in consulting, in your off time, you can actually do it with AI. And now that it's very well developed, so you can just put in prompts to, try to act like an interviewer, and you can try having a mock interview there. Not just with AI. I think there are a few websites where you can, match with people of different colleges to have a case interview scheduled. I don't know what's the name of that website, but like I'll let you guys know. But again, anything like this is second priority. Practicing cases with your group at KGP or your close friends from other IITs would be the best.
Okay, so that was a great perspective. So, like, I had a follow-up question. So, like, how many internships before CDC like can be considered as a good number? Like, should it be very specific to what you are learning at that point, or should it be something that covers like you have worked all your time at KGP?
I mean, again, right? It's it's all about the scaling. Are you someone whose entire CV story is I am a corporate weapon? If that's the case, you should have three at least, right? One startup intern, two corporate interns is minimum in that scenario. Are you someone whose entire story is I have five inter IT sports? You probably don't even need one. But yeah, if you are someone, I think most of you will go along the route of like I am a finance guy to try to cover the finance consulting profiles. Both in that case, if you are, then I would say try to have at least two to three interns in aligning, fields if possible. If you and I know most of you will go along that I am a corporate weapon kind of ideology, I guess. So yeah, two or three.
Okay, great. So, Abhijit, would you like to add anything other than this points, these points?
No, I think it's more or less the same. Three is a good number, and it's a similar answer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't like call on a fixed number, right? Because say if you have three, but those three are say they're related, but like it's not in a very reputed like all three, for example, are not in a very reputed space. Like all three are from very small startups, which for example just started in 2025. I'm not saying you cannot position it for a better impact framing, but it then starts depending on how they can compare you to others who possibly, have at least one corporate intern. So try to be flexible on the number of internships, but try to make sure those internships are of good quality, where you're actually learning something, and the company is not. I won't say a total scam, but like the company is somewhat decent to like leave a story.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I would add on to the scam thing, right? Don't, if you get caught, if they know that your internships are all some, some bullshit that you've cooked up, right? That could have a lot of negative effects. And this I've seen in a particular alim from Bain from IIT Delhi, right? Her entire cohort found out that she had faked her profile. And that particular year, they had done some deep dive into what's going on in this profile, right? And her entire cohort and her entire team had found out that she had faked her resume. So that had a very negative impact on the possibility of her getting a pre-placement offer, right? So just be careful along these lines, yeah. Just trust that your CV is good enough. I would say preferably. I know a lot of other people would tell you थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे कर लो, ये कर लो, वो कर लो, but I would strictly say don't do these sort of things.
that's
Yeah,
very
Yeah,
insightful.
exactly. Like, don't write something on your CV that you haven't done and you wouldn't be able to justify. That's the goal.
yeah, and just one addition to the question on numbers. I think something good with the consult CVs are they give you the liberty to be creative and customize your story to define your personality. So it is not that stringent to have a number about a specific section. You can add on sections. You can, put a correct order. You can maybe put something more on one section and keep the other section a little lighter. So it's up to you. And every time you'll see the trends shift, especially in consulting. There's no fixed trend that somebody can voice out. So it's up to your ability how you customize it and put it. So there's no strict number two or three that you can fix.
Okay, that's very helpful. Let's move to the next section. Along with full cases, guesstimates, and market sizing questions, which are often asked in the interviews, how did you approach learning and practicing them? And any fun day on frameworks or mental math? Hitat, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking for specifically case prep, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, the mental math thing is very easy to get done. Yeah, just play Matix every day. I mean, it's not that difficult. If you are someone who feels that your numbers should be strong, right? I wouldn't say necessarily, but yeah, it does help having a good eye on calculations, right? You don't want to be at the interview and spend 10 minutes doing a basic two-digit number multiplication. That of course sets a bad precedent, right? They don't want someone that daft entering the company. So make your mental math strong. Yes, play Matix. Yeah, that's it. And frameworks are something that happen with practice. But then again, with practice, something very important a senior of mine told me is you sort of plateau at certain point with practice, with case prep. Okay, and with constant case prep after that plateau, your the insights that you gain from constant case prep after that those insights start falling, right? There's a rapid incline and then there's a very long plateau and then it starts falling. That basically means once you start doing X number of cases, you've kind of peaked at the level at which you can derive insights from it. And that means that, for example, you do two or three unique cases that you have never seen in your entire life, right? And yes, I agree, cases are getting more and more complicated every year. This is something that I've noticed to be an increasing trend. But if you start basing your assumptions of all cases that come based on those two, three niche exceptions that you do because you've solved 2000 cases, right? That might have a negative effect on your case prep in general. So I would say people spend 2 3 months doing cases, but at the end of the day they don't really get better after a certain amount of cases solved, right? Just solve an set amount which very ideally can be done in 2 weeks, 3 weeks time.
That's very helpful. Abhijit, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so about the guesstimates, I think it's again the same standard books that we have mentioned. There's also Case Select by one of the DU colleges. It comes very handy, especially for cases. It helps you understand the market sizing approach and how you do it. Uh, Basically, you can use a top-up approach or sorry, top-down approach or bottom-up approach, whatever you feel like. One suggestion I'd give here is whenever you're given a question on market sizing or guesstimate, so to say, ask very clear, niche, preliminary questions and make them exhaustive so that you're very clear with what your approach has to be. Your interviewers reward you for asking good preliminary questions. It gives you brownie points, so to say. And whatever assumptions you make about population or income, etc., profit, just let your interview know that very clearly and try to do a neat maths because oftentimes you may be asked to rewind, go a step before, and restart. So if that is the case, you must have things clearly written on the paper in front of you. So yeah, do neat maths here. It comes really helpful.
Okay, that's very helpful. Shamit, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, nothing major, but for guesstimates, I think it's very important to have an inbuilt business intuition, in my opinion, because suppose I were to give you, for example, a random guesstimate, estimate me the number of pigeons in the city of Mumbai, right? So, like, ordinarily, if you would hear this question, you would be bamboozled. What is this? How do we do it? But then you've got to break it down by, thinking in a tangential direction, a little bit out of the box. So suppose for this pigeons example only, pigeons gather where they are given food, right? And where are pigeons usually given food? In public parks. So why not start off by estimating the number of public parks in Mumbai, which then becomes a much simpler question to solve. And then, making a certain list of assumptions going on to estimating the number of pigeons. So this is essentially what is known as a proxy-based approach, right? So having business intuition, having that sort of, just knack for like pulling related things will help you a lot in guesstimates. So it is guesstimates that can get real unconventional like this, but I think market sizing is mostly a template thing. You start off by addressing your TAM, which is how many people actually, want something. And then you go on to your SAM, which is out of those people, how many can actually afford it. So it's a very logical top-down waterfall kind of bucketing that follows. No changes in that. But in guesstimates, you've got to be super careful with this. I would say for guesstimates per se, um, I think it's a better approach than using books is when you're reading a newspaper, for example. I hope you guys read a lot because that's important in consulting. So if you're reading something, for example, pick up a specific news article and where it is discussed that, for example, the number of electric cars in Delhi increased 5 times from 2024 to 2026. So those sort of quantitative kind of news, if you gather, then try making a guesstimate question out of it and doing it yourself. Because the more questions you make, the more familiar you will be with the process of guesstimating in itself.
Okay, that's very helpful. I had one follow-up question. Um, if you are in an interview and the interview is marking you on your guesstimate, what areas does he look to give you points or allot you points based on how you approach the guesstimate?
So what depends here is your ability to like get to the answer, right? Rather than the hard number itself. This is the most important point. In guesstimates, they do not look for how close your answer is to the actual correct answer. They look for whether you got this answer through a correct approach. So let's say, like the pigeon guesstimate I told you about, let's say the actual answer is some 1.5 lakh, and let's say your process is entirely correct. You go through this public park approach and you get a figure of say 2.5 lakhs, right? Versus an approach where you just do something really, really random, like you attempt to, count the number of pigeon nests across Mumbai using some sort of bullshittery, like doing whatever you want. And then somehow magically you arrive close to that number, say you arrive at 1.25 lakhs, right? Then any day the interviewer is going to prefer the approach where your answer is off, but the process is entirely correct. So they will grade you on how well you can take them through the entire process. They will grade you on how clear you are with explaining the approach to them, explaining the calculations. As Abhijit mentioned, they will ask you to go back and clarify your numbers and stuff like that. So you have to be very neat and clean, and your thought process has to be very structured to put on paper for all that to happen.
All right, that's very insightful. Abhijit, would you like to add something?
I think I already answered the guesstimate question.
Okay.
Just do a reality check, right? This is true for guesstimate and profitability, growth, whatever cases. If you split up your population and say the urban rural split of population is 50-50, that's not true, right? Like it's like just do a realism check and think now ki how many people in India actually live in tier 2 or tier 3 and below cities, right? And you'll have a very real idea of a 50-50 split is ideally incorrect, right? They don't expect you to give the exact answer, right? They don't expect you to say that 57.65 or some stupid number like 85.64. No, no, right? Just a little rough number, right? And this is something you look at in probability and statistics as well, right? You stay around the normal and you don't have to get to the specifics. The deeper you go, the very likely possibility that you'll have a higher number of, let's say, uh, delta in error, right? So just try to do a reality check.
Okay, so like that was very insightful. So, like in consulting interviews, communication and structured thinking are key. So, what are some ways students can build and showcase these skills? So, like Shamit, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so very honestly speaking, if you're getting into consulting, then you have to be impeccable, as you said, in your communication skills and your speaking abilities and whatever. So naturally, if you're someone who likes talking to people a lot, if you're an extrovert essentially, and you're able to, train your line of thought very well and explicitly communicate it to people, that helps a lot. So in terms of specific activities that you can do, perhaps participate in things like debating, elocution, just a minute, and public speaking things like MUNs and stuff. These things, are a bit old-fashioned in college, but they really help you get your speaking skills to the level of interviews. So that is there. And essentially, yeah, I don't think there's much to it apart from, actively talking to people and trying to build yourself up that way.
Okay, so that was very helpful.
I agree with
Abhijit,
him. I mean, I feel like you should know and learn how to speak if you're someone who's not strong at speaking, particularly in English. Like, if you come from a vernacular medium, right? Start speaking in English on a daily basis every day. And this is not because vernacular medium is a bad thing or knowing your mother tongue is a bad thing. That is not the case, right? The clients and the team that you're going to interact with will speak primarily in English. So it's high time that maybe you start on a daily basis to practice your speaking skills. As he said, the best ways to do it are month debates, whatever. But yeah, if you come from a vernacular medium, you better start getting prepared and knowing how to speak.
Yeah, I'll just make quick additions to what has been spoken. Um, Even when you're practicing on your own individually, try to think aloud and do not stutter, do not repeat points, do not fumble. Especially during the interview, there's something called, breaking into buckets. So the principle that lies behind is MECE, MECE, which most of you will come to know once you start preparing. So make clear buckets and try to speak in headings to your interviewer. Do not blabber in paragraphs because your interviewer, it could be your first interview of the day, but for the interviewer, it's probably the 10th or the 15th or maybe even a later interview. So they tend to lose focus after a point. So just throw at them the bullets, the key pointers that you want them to know instead of, repeating an entire paragraph. And I think, yeah, that's it. Just make very concise communication. Speak laconically. Use less words, but convey more ideas.
Okay, that was very insightful from Abhijit. Let's move to the next question. Uh, so there's a lot of last-minute pressure during internship season. Could you share some topics or case trials you just reviewed just before the interviews, which proved to be beneficial? Shamit, would you like to answer this? Yeah, Hitat, you can answer.
Yeah, so see, I'll be honest, right? I feel that 1 or 2 days before your interviews, or like even a few hours before your interviews, you should. I am of the opinion that you should, relax and collect everything that you already have, because learning anything new or practicing, especially when interviews are like so close by, it can stress you out a little bit. And possibly, if you end up making a mistake in a case interview right before the actual interview, your confidence and morale is going to be a bit affected. But that being said, um, in the days, like say 3, 4 days leading up to your interview, just try to do as many case interviews as you can and polish up your math and estimates and all that. Apart from that, I don't think there is much to it, but it's very important keeping your composure, especially in the days leading up to your interview. So if you feel that practicing more will, stress you out, then it's probably best not to do it. And like on the day of the interview, being confident and giving your best. So confidence also plays an important role in the interview. If you're not confident, that reflects in your tone of voice. So ultimately, your confidence and your approach is what decides whether you'll be selected or not.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to that, it's very similar to like your JE prep, right? You spend so much time doing it. What are you going to do in the last 2 days that's going to get you in, right? What are you realistically going to do? Don't do anything new in the last 2 days, because you do something new and you feel like you're not confident in it, that breaks your confidence for everything else, right? Just chill. And this is true for all profiles, right? This is true for all profiles. Just revise something you already know, get it sorted. Do not do anything new in the last 1, 2 days. It'll just rack your nerves.
Abhijit, would you like to add something?
Yeah, just one thing. So in the last few days, the last few hours, in fact, what you can do is just maybe revise or revisit whatever feedback has been given to you by the various people you have interacted with. That could come from your case groups. It could come from your buddy. So buddy is somebody from the shortlisting firm, somebody assigned to you. So yeah, whatever feedback they have given to you, or in fact seniors, if you have had interviews with them, mock interviews, just go through the feedback. Because what for me is good could be okayish or moderate for somebody else. So during the interview, perceptions are very subjective. So try to balance all the feedback given to you and put in your best showcase on the D-Day. That's one key thing. And besides that, just as a spoken, try not too hard on the last few hours. Keep yourself relaxed. And when you practice with more and more people, you think, I mean, there's slight chance that you'll find interviews, mock interviews, which will go really bad. So don't feel disheartened because it's possible. In fact, the D-Day, your interview may not go that well, in your opinion, but you could still make through because what they're necessarily looking for is not the answer. They're looking at the approach, your conduct, your demeanor, how well you've spoken, how confident you are, how presentable you can be in front of the client. So there is a multitude of aspects that the recruiter is looking for, and not just that one answer that you are trying to hit. So just be at your best self. If you worked hard, it should pay off. Stay calm and just go through the feedback in the last few days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had
so
a follow-up.
a small
Yeah,
addition to this. When you're in an important interview, especially in consulting, try to present yourself as a very outgoing and fun-loving person, right? In consulting, there's something called the airport test, if you all would know. Since it involves a lot of traveling and stuff, they want to see how occupied you can keep yourself, others, and your clients, especially when you're traveling for long hours. So when you if you really do want to, do something in the few hours before your interview, try to think about your introductions, try to, connect your hobbies or skills to whatever you've done, and try to, think about ways to pitch yourself in a very interesting manner and stuff like that. Because I don't think that would make you nervous, but it will help you, in fact, break the ice with your interviewer when you get in and you see that you both share a common interest, or you both can converse essentially that way.
Shubhajit, I guess you have muted your mic. Please
oh, so
unmute.
sorry. Uh, so I was asking one question that what are some of the activities which someone can do to calm themselves just a few days before the interview process starts?
Oh, just listen to some music. I mean, not that hard. I used to listen to like Karan Aujla and stuff. Just listen to whatever you want, yeah. Listen to whatever you like. It's not that hard.
That's very helpful. So let's move to the next section. Uh, what advice would you give to someone who is targeting an internship at your firm? Let's hear briefly from all three of you, starting with Hitat.
Do you mean my particular firm or do you mean in general?
Your particular firm.
All right. So at Bain, it's more about your character in a different sort of way, right? As far as I know from the firms that I was targeting, BCG looks at your character in a very different way that Bain looks at your character, in a very different way that LEK or McKinsey look at your character. So it is very different. And what I have seen from industry context, right, is that the way they solve cases is also very different. A lot of the behavior and outcomes very, very different. So particularly for Bain, I would say humility is a very strong thing that they consider. If your profile says I am the best, right? Versus if your profile said this is what I have done and this is what I believe is important towards me and my shortlisting. The latter is, I would say, a much better outcome, specifically for Bain. I feel like that humility context becomes extremely important. Ethics and humility. I think Shamit and Abhidip would both agree that certain firms in this industry may not always be the most ethical, right? So, I would say, our firms, that may be the case, that ethics and stuff like that take sometimes the precedence. So, maybe try to, if you're trying to show that I am the best in my field, maybe try to position it in a different way, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Whatever Richard said. It's about balancing how much of a humble and ethical person you are with what you can bring to the table. So essentially, it's the same thing that LEK as well. So if you're someone who's really good at, say, things related to education and public policy, that's very, very good. But again, what do these fields serve for? These fields serve people for their betterment, right? So ultimately, you should project that you want to create an impact for society, which is why you want to enter LEK, and sort of do cases on the education or the public policy sector. So in such a case, probably uh, like setting your narrative around how much impact you've made on society rather than just in terms of personal impact or an impact for a company. What have you done that has benefited the world or the country or yourself on a macro scale? Those sort of things would be appreciated. So LEK also has this ethos of exceed. Sorry, I don't remember the full form at this point in time. But essentially, what LEK wants is that you remain committed to their mission of serving the world at a larger scale, while giving your best to ensure it happens. So, the key takeaways are: be position yourself as being very hardworking, position yourself as being hungry to make an impact. As Hitak said, very, very important, be humble. Do not at any point in your interview try to project that you are better than any other candidate who's giving the interview. Do not try to project that you are doing a favor to the firm by entering the firm, by saying that you have a lot of other options or whatever. Don't do that. Always say that I'm committed. All it is obvious, right? Whatever interview you attend, just say I'm committed to this firm and try to read up on what the firms like Bain has this entire True North principle. Bain has their own values. LEK similarly has their own values on the website. So be well versed with those and try to like really keep them in mind so you can bring them to light in any answer you give.
Yeah, I think
Abhijit, what's your
Shamit,
thought?
yeah, Shamit has spoken quite exhaustively for LEK. I'll just share a quick narrative. So it was our day one of training at LEK, and this principal walks in, and on the whiteboard up there, he lists quite a few options, and he asks us to pick one, which according to us is the most important trait to sustain in the industry, specifically for LEK. So, and the options were like quick, efficient, nice, etc. So everybody chose their most sweet options, and ironically, the answer was nice. And then he professed further that it's very important to be nice to people in the industry you're meeting and you're interacting with so that you carry the trail forward. And I think that also comes true in the case of interviews. So when you're going and you're sitting in an interview, try to be humble, polite, very try to act subservient to the person in front, and if you make mistakes, try not to cover them up, own it, own your mistakes, because the principal or the partner in front is very experienced. They have an eye for mistakes and they realize when you're mistaking. So any blemish that you have made, own it and redo the step. And you will definitely gain brownie points for redoing something and correcting yourself, because even in the industry, it is a very frequent practice that consultants make mistakes. They misunderstand the client or the project goes on a wrong trajectory. So rewind and directioning yourself on the right track is what helps consultant. So that's a good practice during the interview also. Just do that thing.
And to add on to what Shamit said, I know he spoke about true north, so I might have missed that, my bad. So yeah, Bain's principle is humility, but more than that, it's true north. And no, true north does not mean the scholarship that selects women into the firm. That is based off of the true north principle. And the true north principle is basically that whatever my true north is, I will always look at it, right? Based on the North Star that's always pointing you in the right direction. If you genuinely feel that something is right, something needs to be said, you have to say it. If your client feels that something should go the other way just to make the client happy, you don't say that, no, you're right. You stick to your true north and say, I genuinely believe that this is not the case. I genuinely believe that your company would be in better hands if you do Y instead of X. So yeah.
Okay, so like that was really insightful. So like I had a follow-up question. So like is there any example you've seen that got shortlist who was not actually targeting consult? So like if yes, like was it the same point that they showed their story in a good way?
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. I think there was a lady called Pravalika Das. She was an inter-IT swimming for 5 years straight. She had a lot of gold medals. I don't think she was even targeting anything, but I'm pretty sure all the consulting firms had shortlisted her because she was just that exemplary in swimming that she got it. I think she went ahead to an intern at McKinsey. I'm not too sure, but yeah, this has happened. One of my B Club alums called Suhas Jain, who was targeting quant. I think he went on to Quantbox. He also got interns in like shortlist in all of the consulting companies simply because the story was just good.
Yeah, to add to this, essentially, yeah, there are people who were not targeting consulting, but their story or their achievements were simply too exemplary for any firm to ignore. But then anyone also has to be aware of the fact that if you're not targeting consulting, then why even think of applying? Like if you're genuinely not interested even an ounce in consulting, it would not be worthwhile at all applying because all that energy could be possibly diverted to a field that you possibly like more. So I don't think there's anyone who has applied to consulting like without having even thought about getting into consulting at one point in time. Even if they were not selected, it is still something that people consider. So it's fine if someone does not want to target consulting at all, but like make sure to make an informed decision and actually maximize your chances in what you like rather than targeting it, which
I mean, to counter that, I may not completely agree with that because there's a reason that ERP gives you three CVs, right? Even if you don't think you want to go into consulting, if you're a smart fellow, if you're exemplary in a particular field, I mean, I would like to have you at our firm if you get the return, like if I get the return offer, right? I think exemplary people should make consult CVs. A lot of times, people trying for consult are just doing it because अरे यार कोई option नहीं है. But at the end of the day, if you are someone who has a standout profile, if you are someone who believes that yeah, I am good enough, and you're still thinking tech versus non-tech, make a non-tech one. You have three CVs, just make one. Because if you get the shortlist, why not? Think about joining, right? Even if you feel like, okay, you're eating someone else's spot who probably wants that shortlist, but at the end of the day, it's a very personal thing, right? Like, who cares if you're eating someone else's spot? Like, you want what you want. That's not bad.
agreed. That's true. So at any point in time, if you do get shortlisted, then obviously that's a chance that is too good to pass up. So yeah, as Raj said, if you do feel like applying and you feel even and a small inclination towards wanting to be selected, then of course that is something that should be done.
Okay, so like that was really helpful. So Abhijit, would you like to add something?
Yeah, the same thing. So it's true, consulting does not have a very predetermined set of pointers, which if you write on your CV, you'll get a shortlist. It's a new trend every time. So it's good to apply, and you'll always see people who did not plan on getting into consulting, but they did end up. That's what happens most of the times. So it's because you have been able to project your CV in a way which did impress the recruiting team, the shortlisting team. So do apply. And since you're asking about such cases, I think there was this case some time ago, an entrant into McKinsey, one of our seniors. She didn't apply for consulting. She didn't plan on consulting from a good time, but she ended up having it just because she applied. And that's probably because the firm liked the way her CV was drafted and she's spoken of herself. So, yes, that is something which happens more or less. And it's primarily because there's no fixed set of norms which people are looking on your CV. It could come from just you presenting the best selves of yours.
Okay, so like that was very insightful. So like finally, for those who are sitting for CDC this year, would you like to give some piece of advice to them?
Yeah, I think just stay active in your batch, talk to more and more of your friends and peer groups, see what people are doing, seek inspiration from them, what you can adopt in your practicing methodologies, and be aware of what new resources, what new because since AI has taken over quite a lot in the last few months, see how best you can make use of AI to aid your preparation, how others are doing it. Uh, Also, I would request you to contact seniors who have had internships or having internship currently in such firms, whatever field you're targeting, and request a mock interview with them, or maybe with the seniors who have already been working in the firm, so that you know from their perspective what such firms look are on a lookout for, so that you get, the key principles that they are looking for. That should help. Yeah.
I think that AI point is really,
To
really
add
good.
to like
Yeah,
the
continue.
discussion. Okay. So just a very small but pragmatic tip, we always have heard of things like don't put all your eggs into one basket. So if you're someone who's really interested in consulting, sure, it should be your first preference. But if you're also someone who thinks that they want to end up with an intern at any cost, then you should probably also think of other non-tech domains like finance. Like I do not know of many people who have tried for consulting without like preparing for finance simultaneously or even data for that matter. So again, don't put all your eggs into one basket. Try like working towards as many profiles, like not as many profiles as maximum stream you can work towards. But if you're going for consulting, then finance is a very good option because it complements consulting very well. So that is.
I think both of them were very brilliant points. The AI point, especially, was really insane. The fact that the entire consulting industry in general has just completely reformed and wants everyone in the industry to use AI so heavily now. They want us. The more tokens we're using, the better. So I used to think that if we use more tokens, they'll be like you're charging, we're charging the company more, but they want you to use more tokens. So I guess that was a very important point. The second point, more on the outlook, right? Uh, I know a lot of the companies that we've been discussing simply because all of us got a day one shortlist and we converted it. You're looking only at day one, right? But there's so many insane companies that come on the other days. But the fact is that people have this bias towards the fact that I did not get any day one shortlist. I did not get any day two or day three shortlist, and so I might have failed. That's not the case, right? There's so many brilliant companies, and people have really transitioned their entire career from starting at companies that come on day six and day seven. I knew a particular senior that, in fact, did not get any shortlist in CDC intern season. He was from my club only. No shortlist in CDC intern, no shortlist in placements, and he went on to go to IIM Calcutta, and now he's making 1 crore a year at Goldman Sachs front office, right? Without getting a single placement from campus simply because his CGPA was low. So do not think that this is the end game, right? Your life has several maximas and minimas. This is just one of those maximas that you're trying for. And at the end of the day, this is not your global maxima. This is your local maxima, right? And in the process of reaching your potential, this may be something that helps you, yes. But if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. Do not ever think that this is the end, right? Be motivated to keep upskilling yourself, keep bettering yourself. That is the end goal if you're from an IIT, because your career is sorted no matter where you go to, if you're from an IIT and if you have ambition to become better. So target day one, target day two, target day three, but do not think that it's over if you don't get anything.
Okay, so like that was really very meaningful. So like this brings us to the end of our structured panel discussion. So audience, the Q&A box is open. Please drop your questions there.
Okay, so one of the questions says, looking at the consulting landscape today, what would you recommend students start doing now that will help, that would still be valuable 5 years from now?
I think learning how to use AI is already mentioned. That's the foremost thing I would do in your future.
Any other points, Abhijit?
Yeah, besides that, just uh, be quick recipient of whatever changes are taking place. So now AI has taken over and people are professing people to adopt it. In the future, there could be some other changes. So just be a quick recipient, learn to adopt to new skills. Because even in consulting, the cases could be quite short. And in that short span, you have to understand the nuance of the case background, the client, the new landscape, which could be completely out of the regime you have been in. So the key here is to be very quick in adapting. So that comes really handy if you're aware and if you're reading newspapers and you're with the world, whereas the war is going to be tariff war or whatever kind of things happening, just be aware and be a quick learner.
That was very helpful. There's one next question. What are the hidden risks or potential downsides of pursuing consult in a tech institute?
I don't think there's any downsides. Pursue it, have fun. I mean, you're in a tech institute, but at the end of the day, are you going into your core field in engineering? Are you going chemical engineering? Are you going manufacturing engineering? You're calling it a tech institute, but at the end of the day, what are you doing? Software development. Like, that is also not your core field, right? That is also not what your branch is teaching you. But somehow you are there because you have intellect. At the end of the day, they want smart people. You can learn your what you've learned in engineering in 4 years, right? And realistically, you know how much you've actually learned, but you still understand the nuances of the industry. And they expect that you'll have the same learning rate here as well. Because at the end of the day, how hard is learning terminology in consulting, how hard is making basic Excel, how hard is make learning financial jargon, right? It's not that difficult if you are in an IIT. They want intellectual people, that's it.
Yeah, that was very insightful. Uh, there's one more question. How can one effectively communicate their thought process and impress the interviewer, and any general instruction and red flags we should avoid?
Yeah, so that's a brilliant question. I think we missed an important point throughout the course of this discussion. So there's this format called STAR, right? Situation, task, action, and yeah, recommendation. So whenever you communicate anything to the interviewer, it has to be in this format. So suppose you are explaining your internship experience to an interviewer, right? So you have to follow this method. So you have to start off with the situation. What were you tasked with? For example, you were tasked with eliminating financial waste, eliminating, like, say, spare part waste in an automobile company, for example. That was your situation. And you were assigned with fixing that by, financial modeling or machine learning algorithms, whatever, to predict demand, etc., etc. Then comes your action. What did you do for it, right? So you can say, I built so and so model. I did so and so research. I went here. I talked to people, all that, whatever. And then recommendation or outcome. What was the final thing that you suggested the company to do, right? Along with that, what came out of it? So you were able to eliminate all the spare part waste, and you were able to, cut costs for your company by 15% in its supply chain. So that's a very good thing, right? You got from a very small contribution of yours just to eliminate spare part waste, you've managed to get all the way to a recommendation of cutting costs in the entire supply chain. So this approach, this STAR approach, basically helps you communicate your impact in, the best possible way, because it then becomes really, really clear to the interviewer what you're talking about. So keep this thing in mind. I think this was not mentioned, but this is a very important and a primary way in which you should go about explaining things about your internships and stuff, and even what you will use while writing your CV points.
Any more points on the table, Abhideep or Hitarth?
No,
Uh,
it pretty much sums it up for me.
Yeah, mostly the same. Just a few things quite related with it, but not directly. During the interview, whenever it starts, do ask the interviewer for clarifications, if any. So there could be words they've mentioned or some jargon which you're not aware of. Do not feel hesitant. There is no negative point at all if you ask the meaning of it or what is the context behind it. Feel free to ask it, and you must ask. That's one tip. And oftentimes, when the interview ends, and if it's a partner round, the partner asks you if at all you have a question for them. So make sure you have a good question for them. They're really on lookout for people who ask good questions, and that can give you some brownie points towards the end of the interview. So go prepared with what good questions you can ask a partner in the end. And never ever should you make a wild guess about things. Just make statements which you can back up with facts and logics, because they really need sources. But why you support this data or fact or an opinion. And yeah, lastly, if you need time to process, ask for time. You'll be given it. Do not be on rush to deliver so instantly that your quality of answer is compromised. Quality reigns much superior. So yeah, ask for time if you need.
Okay, that's very insightful. But yeah, one very big question remains, that is there some danger to consult industry with the evolution of AI? Hitath, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, could you repeat the last question? I'm sorry.
Is there any danger to the consult industry with the evolution of AI?
Uh, I mean, I'm wondering that myself. But no, I mean, I feel like that is true across the board, right? Oracle, Amazon just fired such a huge portion of their workforce in the implementation of AI. But I feel like any new disruption that comes becomes a tool consultants use to help companies, right? When Excel came along, a lot of accountants were fired across companies because they simply didn't need them anymore, right? For consultants, it just became a tool to make models and better advise companies. And I feel like the same is true for AI. It's just, I feel now, uh, it's more about not reducing people but increasing efficiency. I have noticed that suppose you require, an efficiency of 85% ish, with accuracy, with everything else, and you're getting the job done within a week. You have Claude Opus Max with you in your firm, and now they expect an efficiency of 95%, and they expect the same task from you in 3 days or 2 days, right? It's simply about deadlines and expectations becoming a little higher with the advent of AI, not in a sense removing people. Because at the end of the day, consulting is a very people centric domain, right? You need a lot of EQ as well as IQ. You need to handle clients because clients can feel comfortable around people that they feel are smart. They feel comfortable being told what to do by people smarter than them. It's as simple as that. And I feel like that aspect will never go, right? That people centric domain will never go. I feel like there's a lot more profiles that are way more at risk with AI than consulting. But yeah, at the same time, yes, I feel like Claude Opus can do a significant portion of my job. So I don't know.
I had a follow-up question in this. Is there
Yeah,
any
yeah.
expect?
So to add to
Yeah, Shamit, you can go forward.
So just to add to this, a lot of consulting firms do a lot of specialist type consulting, right? So, for example, LEK has some sectors it's really proficient at. So every consulting firm has built a base of its IP, which is intellectual property, which is their years and years of research and expertise on whatever cases they've worked on, right? Quite some of them would be quite similar as well. So that specialist experience, which is actually confidential to the firm, is something AI cannot replicate, right? AI cannot dive into your company's database and gather all your experience and pitch that to the client. So that is something that has been built year by year by every consulting firm, and that is why I feel consulting as a domain itself is shielded, from AI taking over, especially in terms of giving recommendations or ideas. As Hitarth said, it is more of improving process efficiency in terms of, probably making your Excel modeling quite simpler or, helping you on PPT design. But that knowledge is something AI can never replicate or, even bundle that up into a recommendation for any client.
That's very helpful. Abhijit, would you like to add something?
Um, Yeah, I think it is. Given the fast pace of revolution that AI has taken over, the question is quite contextual and relevant too. It may pose some threat, but I think as AI is revolutionizing, so is the complexity of the problems or the cases. So if AI has gotten up by some fold, so are the cases that are coming to the industry. So after the point, I think the consulting industry will be modernized in a way so that AI will become a part and parcel so well suited that the deliverables will be integrated with AI in a way which is not very easy for an individual to replicate. So if the question is the client could themselves use the AI to deliver or seek the output, possibly not, because as AI is modernizing, it is also, the consulting firms are equipping themselves with human resources and technologies that can make the best use of such AI. And that is something consulting is adopting to. So I think the first consultation consultancies are giving is to themselves, is to how to adapt to such newly revolutionizing world. And I think they'll be able to, because they've taken a notch higher, integrating AI into the work stream and client deliverables. And I think that is doing a good job.
So I think we have covered most of the questions. With this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you everyone who participated and asked questions. I'm sure there was a lot to gain from those answers. A special thank you to Abhijit, Siddharth, and Shamit for taking time out of their busy corporate schedules to share their experiences and insights with us.
Yeah, I mean, thank you to the Communiqué team as well. I feel like these sessions are incredibly important, right? A lot of people just sometimes reaching out to seniors becomes incredibly difficult. I sometimes do not get texts from a lot of people who are interested in this field. So, and yes, as you said, time is something that all of us have in a very short amount, right? So, speaking to a multitude of people with a short amount of time is kind of something that is good, and I feel like you guys provide that platform. So, good job on that.
Yeah, even I
Thank
was
you.
just coming to
Yeah,
it.
so this
I
was
think
something
Communique
that
has
was
been.
present in our time as well, right? So communique sessions were really important, like when we were on our internship path. So it feels good giving back to some of our juniors as well in that way. So just saying that we're always there to support you guys in like whatever way we can.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, keeping the college community active and getting seniors more approachable towards their junior, awareing them that there are facilities they can reach out for is a very good initiative. Thank you, Communique, for inviting as a panelist. It was good being a part of the discussion.
Okay, so like thank you, Abhideep, Hitarth, and Shamit. So we would again like to extend our heartiest congratulations to our panelists on securing successful internships. We hope that everyone found the session valuable and walked away with a clearer roadmap for consulting preparation.
So we also have panel discussions scheduled for the next weekend. So do join the announcements WhatsApp group for further updates. Thank you everyone. Have a great evening.